It's an unfinished neural circuitry that you're laying down. So, Aristotle said, we are what we repeatedly do. And so when you are strengthening, perseverance, when you're strengthening your mental toughness, you are basically creating a neural pathway, a network of cells that goes from A to B to C to D to E.
Spartans, Joe De Sena here, CEO and founder of Spartan and your host for Spartan Up Podcast. I interviewed this guy, Mark McLaughlin. I'm really fascinated, as I'm sure you are, with the brain. So here's a neurosurgeon that happens to be a wrestler, so he thinks the way we think. And he's done some studies that are amazing. Literally changed my life talking to this guy. I think you're going to dive in here. I think you're going to learn something. We talk about this idea, success breeds success, failure breeds failure. And it's a nice thing to say, but he explains why, as a neurosurgeon, what he sees as a pattern on our brains that lead to that lead to success breeding success and failure breeding failure. So stay tuned. By the way, if you're a wrestler or from any combat sport, rugby, football, etc., I want to hear from you. Comment in the comment section, because I suspect you're just a little more resilient than the rest of us. So pay attention. You're going to enjoy this.
This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by True Form Runner. Conquer your next race with the complete training solution from Spartan and True Form. The Spartan True Form Trainer will redefine your running, improve your form, and reduce injury. Find out more at trueformrunner.com.
We are now full-blown wrestlers in this family. You know the name Andy Rovat?
Yes, I have heard the name. Yes.
Andy's here with us now on lockdown. He's training the kids. He lived over in Russia and was just so amazed at how the Russians continue to get all the gold medals in wrestling. And he wanted to see, what is it about the Russians?
They are dominant for sure.
Yeah. So what do you think? Like being a brain surgeon, being a wrestler, being a coach, why are the Russians winning?
Well, it's something that Gable talked about. They have a creativity about them that's great. I think that their work ethic, maybe we can beat them on work ethic, but they have a great creativity. And that's what I loved about wrestling when I did it, was you have to really innovate and think on your feet. That's why I love neurosurgery too. In fact, neurosurgery to me is like the wrestling of medicine, because it was the hardest, most grueling, most personal thing I could possibly choose. And, I'm just thrilled that I was able to do it. And wrestling gave me the strength and perseverance to stick it out.
What kind of parents did you have for you to seek the hard stuff? Like, where'd you grow up?
I had amazing parents. I grew up in Short Hills, New Jersey. Unfortunately, my mom just passed away last week from the COVID virus.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you. She was an amazing woman, a teacher for 40 years, and she really instilled generosity and love and service into all of us. And my dad was this amazing guy. He was an attorney for 40 years. And then after he finished his law career, he went back to school at Drew University and got a PhD in history. And then at the age of 78, wrote his first book, a book about General Albert Wedemeyer, unsung hero in World War II. And then at his second book at age 88. So my dad worked, all the way through up until the last days of his life. And he picked up exercise as a kid. He credited weightlifting with getting himself through law school, because it kept him up at night. He would go to the gym in the Newark YMCA in the afternoon before he went to night school. And, he was into weightlifting before it was cool, when people thought it was dangerous. He used to carry this gripper around in his car every day. And I talk about this in my book. So here in the car, whenever we'd stop at a red light, you hear click to tink, click to tink, click to tink, click to tink. He was squeezing the gripper, no wasted time ever. And so we all carry grippers with us in my dad's memory.
I love that. What years was he lifting? Because when I was young, I came onto the planet, into the scene after Jack LaLanne, but around the time, Dan Laurie and all these weightlifters coming out of, Arnold Schwarzenegger's, whatever that beach was in California. What was the beach? They all Muscle
Beach, Venice Beach. Yeah.
Yeah. So when was Dad weightlifting? What year was that?
Like 1958 to 60. This is when he was just kind of getting into school, getting his law degree. He got it on the GI Bill after serving in the Army. And, he was a fitness fanatic his whole life. And I remember my mom going crazy because he'd bring this new weight equipment into the house. And she's like, where are we going to put this stuff? You can't just be spending money on this. And he always kept saying to all the kids, we had 4 kids just like you. He said, it's an investment. This is always an investment. You can never waste money on health equipment.
I like that. He was, so did he serve?
He served in the Army, in the Army of Occupation. After World War II, and then he went back and he served in Korea.
Got it. Okay. And you know Coach Cole at Cornell by chance?
I do. Yes.
I'm good friends with Rob Cole, and he talks about his dad, who stormed Normandy Beach, was the only guy to survive, I guess, on his boat, and you could imagine what climbing up that wall of sand was like, and the things he had to face, and I guess he never lost a wrestling match ever. The father, I think that's the story, because he remembers that scene on the beach anytime he's on the mat,
Exactly. I mean, imagine the fear of being 21 years old or 18 years old and you're climbing into the water with an 80-pound pack on and you're getting shot at. It's an incredible, I can't even believe it. It's amazing.
Can't even believe it. So let's talk about the brain. I'll tell you, I'm sorry I'm all over the place, but I'm having so much fun with you being a guest here, because you're my 2 favorite things. I got a couple of 21-year-old kids that came up here to the farm about a week ago. Their parents are very, very wealthy. And I get this a lot. I've gotten this over the last 20 years where people send me people, hey, my cousin, this one, that one needs some help. They got to lose weight. They've got a drug addiction, alcohol addiction. These 2 21-year-olds showed up, and I said, listen, guys, I literally have had 7 million people through Spartan races all around the world. And I've seen lots of people quit, lots of people. And when you're quitting, you make all the sense in the world around quitting. It's very logical to you at that moment in time. And it just occurred to me the other day, I said to my kids, because the 2 kids quit. The 2 21-year-olds came. They made it 7 days. They were supposed to be here 6 months. They made it 7 days. They quit. They got a black car back home. And I said, guys, it leaves a gap in your brain. I told my kids it leaves a gap. Now, I don't know if it actually leaves a gap. You could tell us that. But, you can't fill that gap, right? Once you quit, and there are things you're supposed to quit, right? Ed Visters, the famous mountain climber, says getting to the top is optional. Getting down is mandatory. So there are things you're supposed to quit, but by and large, do you think there's biology there when I say that there leaves a gap?
Absolutely. It's an unfinished cycle, and it's an unfinished neural circuitry that you're laying down. So, Aristotle said, we are what we repeatedly do. And so when you are strengthening, perseverance, when you're strengthening your mental toughness, you are basically creating a neural pathway, a network of cells that goes from A to B to C to D to E. And it's just like the same reason you can hop on a bike, 40 years after you learned how to ride a bike, because you have a neural network of cells that knows exactly what to do. So when you're working on mental toughness and you're performing acts, hopefully acts that are slowly and more difficult over time, more complex, so you're building on them, you are building a neural circuit that lasts in your brain. And it's one of the only things we can do to prevent Alzheimer's disease is to keep exercising our brain. The more we read, the more we think about things, the more we challenge our brain with puzzles and vocabulary and learning new languages and reading. All those things strengthen neural networks. They give us a redundancy in the neural circuitry that we can fall back on when we get older or when we get a head injury. So I gave a talk at Fort Carson, and I told the 10th Special Forces Group, the best thing you can do to prevent chronic traumatic encephalopathy is to exercise your brain just like you exercise your mind and your body. You got to do it every day.
So that CTE, you mean the big NFL disease?
Exactly. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy is a disease that people get from repetitive head trauma. And there's a big concern in the military because these these soldiers they're breaching walls, they're having explosives, multiple subconcussive blows to their brain with these percussions of the blowing off the doors and things like that. And they're firing these Carl Gustav guns, which have this incredible pressure wave. And so there's a big concern in the military that they may be at risk for CTE. And so, as I said, the only thing you can do is take a higher intellect into old age. That's one of the best things you can do to fight the effects of Alzheimer's disease or dementia, is to continually exercise your neural circuits. Just like you're doing push-ups and pull-ups and running, you got to study vocabulary every day. You got to quiz yourself on a couple of words. You got to learn some new words. You got to read a hard book. You got to read a light book. You got to keep doing it.
It's annoying as I listen to you, because I definitely lean towards burpees, but I guess I got to pick up the crossword puzzles too.
You got to hit something that you love doing now. I'm not a crossword puzzle myself, but I love vocabulary. There's all kinds of great apps. I've got this app called Anki, where when I'm reading a book, I see a word that I don't know, I put it down, I write a definition, and I load it into this app, and it basically is a bunch of flashcards that pops up every morning for a minute, and I just relearn the words and keep working on getting more and more words in my vocabulary.
I love it. I mean, you certainly sound smart.
I just like Gable says, I'm just a hard worker. I'm a hard worker.
You're a hard worker. Do you think, I have 4 children. I mean, clearly it happened in your house. Your dad was squeezing that gripper all day, every day. So he was just hardened steel, right? And how did he pass that on? Was it just by modeling it? Did he talk about it? Did he force you to get up? Am I pushing them too hard?
It was definitely modeling. I mean, he was the first one up in the morning every day, and he was the person who went to bed the latest. It was definitely, by example more than anything. He was always available for advice. And, I think he set the standard for us to do that. He also gave us every opportunity that we could possibly get, so we were very fortunate in that respect. And I think that's what a father needs to do for their children. We have 4 children too. And, right now my kids are in their 20s, and I keep emphasizing reading to them, and they're not big readers right now. And neither was I when in my 20s. So what I'm trying to do is I'll get a book and I'll read it for them, and I'll highlight a couple of paragraphs here and there. And then I'll send it to them and say, you don't have to read the whole book. Just read these paragraphs, just kind of give you a digested version of this. And I think that that's sometimes what my dad would do too. He would help us on a project just a little bit, a little pre-digestion. Here it is, but you got to do the rest of it yourself. And it was good lessons to be learned.
He tried to hook you.
Exactly.
So, and the other thing I try to, like with the 21-year-olds that just quit, or anybody I'm working on, including my own kids, wake up early, get to bed early. Any brain science there?
Absolutely. It's biological in our genes. Circadian rhythms have been around since we've existed. We're used to being, up when the sun comes up and down when the sun goes out. And that it's truly ingrained in us. There are hormones and there are chemicals within our brain that are expecting that. And so it's very important to keep that kind of a rhythm, and the productivity is going to be higher when you do that.
So what about all the people that push back on me? Again, we got 7 million people, right? And by the way, I just had the parents of the 2 21-year-olds on the call yesterday, and they said, hey, Joe, I know they quit. Could you send the military guy to live at our house and take care of them? And I said, sure. I said, they're going to get up at 6 a.m. They said, well, instead of 6 a.m., what about 8:30 a.m.? I said, I'm starting to see the problem here. So what about people that claim they're night people?
I think there's certainly going to be people outside of the bell curve that function better in different environments, but the vast majority is going to do better on a circadian rhythm. That's the way our machines were made to hunt and to survive, and then to rest at night. So it's you have to do what works. You gotta dance with the lady that you came with, but everybody's going to be different. But if you're going to go with your odds are to get up early and get to bed early. Those are the important things.
I love that.
And I think getting better in shades is really important too. You can't just become a morning person if you're a night person, but you can train yourself over time to gradually increase the times, you get to bed earlier and get up a little bit earlier. So I think that could be done.
Well, that's been I thought, you can't guarantee your kid's going to be a brain surgeon or a wrestler or whatever, but I might be able to kind of trick the universe into getting them to wake up every morning early, go to bed early, and maybe after 18 years under our roof, maybe it'll just stick with them, I was thinking.
Yeah, and I'm curious, do you guys have on the dietary regimen, do you start with an early breakfast? That's important too, to get some fats and some protein in you early on. If you don't do that early on, you're playing catch up all day long. And so that's some of the reasons why people have trouble controlling their weight. You need to have a good, healthy breakfast that's got some fat and some protein in it.
I like it. The way I've always operated doesn't mean it's right. Let me just tell you how I've always operated is, and this is from Jack LaLanne's wife. I'm friendly with her. She'll still knock out 20 push-ups. I think she's just shy of 100 years old. She's unbelievable. Anyway, she says, Joe, Jack and I believe you got to earn your breakfast. So whether that's right or wrong, that was just this thing that I picked up years ago. And currently I'm getting about 5 hours of stuff done before I eat. And my kids work out before they eat. They earn their breakfast. But I'm willing to try an avocado if you think that's smarter before the workout.
I don't think it's wrong to work out, but I'm just saying in the morning, in the first hour or two, you should get some kind of nutrition in you to get your body going and to lower the insulin levels in your blood. So that's an important part of it. So I think it's being well-rounded. It's getting the exercise, it's getting a diet, and it's feeding your brain a little bit. It's funny. I had a friend who was like struggling with his reading, and I said, just set the goal for 5 minutes every morning. Read it for 5 minutes. You'll end up reading more. You'll get more out of it. And, I think that's the way to go. But getting back to those kids that left, I mean, do you think it was fear? Was it fear that kept them from doing it? Or was it just lack of discipline?
You're the brain doctor here. I'll give you some thoughts, and then you shed some light.
Watch Camp Spartan, the new series from Spartan on YouTube.
It's happened more times than I can count. Doesn't matter where I am in the world. I'm training the kids early in the morning, just like we've been doing since they're 4 years old. Some parent pops out of nowhere and says, "What the hell are you doing?" and starts screaming at me. You give me 5 minutes, I promise you'll be sending your kids my way too.
We don't quit anything. We're gonna hold hands. We're gonna get through this together.
I just want to quit this one thing.
Of course you do.
It's so hard.
It's not moms, it's not Joe, it's not coaches, it's your race.
You went through 13 days. I want you to do 20 more minutes. You're finishing this.
Camp Spartan is now in session.
Camp Spartan, the new series from Spartan. Watch episode 1 now, only on YouTube.
Hey, we're going to be right back to this episode, but first I want to talk to you a little bit about Trueform. So we're here in Boston, we're filming podcasts. Trueform is a partner of Spartan Race. They've brought these incredible machines in.
Awesome.
And Sephora, you were just running on it, and I want you to tell the story.
Yeah. So maybe if you can see when I'm running, I thought I was like, oh, I'm a great runner. Turns out, like, my hips go like this, and people always made fun of me for waddling. I never quite understood it. But in 2 seconds of being up on this thing, the founder came over to me and he's like, hey, lift your legs up. And then all of a sudden, my hips are in place. So these machines allow for such a quick diagnosis of how you're running, and that's gonna like help with my alignment, and I'm sure with a lot of things. So it's awesome.
And that's really what we want to ask yourself. Why am I buying a treadmill? Some people buy a treadmill just to bang it out. If you want to be a better runner, and realistically, who doesn't want to be a better runner if you run? That's actually what this treadmill is about. It's not just about spinning and making you move. If you're running on a traditional treadmill, you can run badly and keep running badly. Yeah. If you're running on this, it's going to catch you. You have to run well for this to move well. That's the whole point of it. Anyway, Trueform has an incredible promotion they have going on right now. It's a program they've put together. It's not just for Spartan racers, but this one in particular is put together with Spartan Race. If you go to trueformrunner.com, you'll find out that you can get a machine in your living room. You can get a training program. You can get a gait analysis to tell you what you're doing right and wrong. And you even get a
Awesome.
free Spartan race for it, all for a very low monthly fee. TrueFormRunner.com. Honestly, it's going to make you a better runner.
All right, let's get back to this episode.
Getting back to those kids that left, I mean, do you think it was fear? Was it fear that kept them from doing it, or was it just lack of discipline?
You're the brain doctor here. I'll give you some thoughts, and then you shed some light. It's hard to commit to big things. If you're running 100 miles, at least in my experience in my life, the idea of 100 miles is just too big to deal with. And so what I found is I could do 10 miles, and then I just got to get to 11, and I got to get to 12, and then maybe we can make it to 20. And before you know it, you just click it off, and right, and you get to the end, to the finish line. And for kids that never had a rite of passage, that have been always I love this saying that, like, when you can't change your situation, you learn to change yourself, or you don't. And if you're kids that have the opportunity, thanks to mom and dad who are doing very, very well, to continually change the situation so you don't have to change yourself, right? Like, hey, Mark, you're a great wrestler, but I know you don't like wrestling strong guys, so we're only going to give you weak guys. And I know you rather than a 2-inch foam mat, we're going to get you 4-inch. Like, eventually, you basically give up on everything in life. There's no need to push through, right? So they were here for 7 days, and they just couldn't take it anymore. It was too hard. Just so you know, Joe, you made a huge impact. We're no longer going to do drugs. We're going to wake up early. 7 days was all we needed. Thank you. High five. See you later. Really, you would be the most advanced species on the planet if that was true. If 7 days really did it, you just decided to quit. You couldn't deal with it.
Yeah. I love Jordan Peterson's work. And one of the things he asks is, as a parent, would you rather have your kids be safe or strong? And to get them to be strong, you have to let them have that exposure to pain and suffering. And that's how they become resilient. So there's a lot of helicopter parenting around, and, we see it. And it is really important to stress your kids in many different ways. But I do think that fear has a big part of this. It plays a big role in failure. It's crushed the dreams of many people, and it affects all of us. It affects our performance. One of the things I talk about in my book is how fear kind of kept me from being the best neurosurgeon I could be for a long time, because I had this one young boy that I took care of very early on in my career. And just before I took care of this young boy, I took a gentleman who came in paralyzed, and I operated on him, and he miraculously made a full recovery. And so I was like flying high, and I was like, oh, this is great. This is what I wanted to do my whole life. It was my first month of practice. And then I ran into this 8-year-old young boy who had a brain tumor on his brainstem. And I knew I had all the skills to take him to the operating room and take care of him. And I operated on him, and the operation went perfectly, but he had every single complication that you could possibly imagine. And I saw this young boy slip through my fingers and become this neurologically devastated little boy. And it hit me with such despair and fear that maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe I could have done a better job. Maybe I could have done the surgery faster, or shaved the tumor off better, or identified the complications sooner. And it drove me away from pediatric neurosurgery. I ultimately stopped doing it because I couldn't experience that sadness and that fear of like doing that. And it took me 15 years to think about that boy, until I started working on my book. And I realized I'm writing a book about fear, and you ran away from it 15 years ago. I got to find out what happened to this little boy. I actually moved to a different town. I moved from Massachusetts to New Jersey. And when I started looking up the family, and I found this family up in Massachusetts, his dad owns a pizza parlor up there. And I scrolled through the pictures, and the boy is still alive and he made a recovery. I couldn't believe it.
Oh, wow.
I went back up to see them, and I told his mom and dad, for 15 years, I felt like I let you down. I felt like I didn't do the best I could possibly do. And they gave me this gigantic hug and they said, no, you saved our boy and he's still with us. And he's still our number one guy in the pizza parlor. And I just realized, gosh, I had this whole thing all wrong. I was afraid of failure, and I was afraid that my skills weren't good enough, but in fact they were. And it took me 15 years to figure that out. And once I realized that and I forgave myself and I said, hey, look, you can't just attribute good outcomes to luck like you did with the paralyzed person. And you can't attribute all your bad outcomes to your failure. That's not your failure. You do the best you can every day. That was when I grew. I realized I forgave myself and I grew, and I became a much better surgeon when I had that revelation.
Would you have had that revelation had you not met the family and found out the ultimate outcome?
I don't think I would have. It was one of those things where they gave me a picture right after I took care of him, and they said, Doc, we want you to have this. And it was this picture of this little boy, and he just wasn't doing well at the time. This was 15 years ago. And I had that picture on my wall for 15 years, and every time I walked by it, I was sad. I thought I could have given that kid more. And when I got to see the family, they had a picture of me with him a year later that I had totally forgotten about, that they were looking at it as a success and how I saved their boy, and he was still with them and he was still helping dad in the pizza parlor. Now, he still got deficits. He didn't recover fully, but it was a success to them. And they viewed it as 100% success. And I viewed it as a failure for 15 years. And you tell yourself stories about these things and you succumb to this fear and anxiety, and then you have to grow from it. And that's sort of in the story of the book. That's how I talk about this journey that you go on through life, where you experience things that you don't expect. And sometimes you say, oh, that was terrible, but it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me.
Yeah, the stories, I guess, tell the whole thing. What's the name of the book, Doc?
Cognitive Dominance, A Brain Surgeon's Quest to Outthink Fear.
I love it. And is it for sale right now?
Yep, it's available on Amazon.
Oh, that's awesome. The book is called Cognitive Dominance. And why should somebody, how's it going to make somebody better that reads this book?
Well, it's a military term, and it's defined as enhanced situational awareness that facilitates rapid and accurate decision-making under stressful conditions with limited decision-making time. And I first learned about it when I was giving talks up at West Point. And I thought, wow, that's military, but that's also neurosurgery. And it's also business, and it's parenting, and it's everything. It's how do you deal with stress and fear and anxiety in a way that makes you more effective? How do you navigate off of it to be more effective? So what I do in the book is I map out a number of experiences that I had as a neurosurgeon, as a coach, as a father, as a business person, and how I metabolize that fear in a healthy way. I figured out a system using my knowledge of neuroanatomy and my understanding of the neurosciences. How can we navigate fear and use it to our advantage to become more effective? So it's a map to metabolize fear.
I mean, especially right now, you couldn't have wrote the book at a better time, right? Right now, with everybody having tremendous fear, being stuck in their homes. Give me a little Reader's Digest, give me a little tip what somebody could do at home right now to deal with that fear.
Sure. What I talk about is how we're all on this path in life. We're where we are, and then we have this idea of where we want to be or where we should be. And along the way between where we are to where we should be, we experience these life events, these moments that can transform us. Carl Jung talked about this. He believed these were transformational moments in our lives that could make or break us, just like a ray of sunlight can melt a snowflake, or it can turn a chlorophyll into energy. These moments occur in our lives. And he studied alchemy, and he believed the alchemists were really onto something metaphysically. Not that, you can turn lead into gold, but you can actually have an event that happens that can make you better in this transformational moment. So the way to look at it is you have to take these transformational moments, like the COVID virus, and you have to break it down. You need to create a systematic methodology in your brain to break it down. What are the objective and what are the subjective components of this event? What do we know about it and what do we don't know? And is it a tool or an obstacle? And if you can ask those three questions objectively, what are the facts? What would everybody agree on throughout the whole world? And then what are the subjective meanings of these facts to me personally? And then again, you ask yourself, is this known to me? Am I familiar to this in any way? Or is this totally unknown? And is this a tool or an obstacle? And if you do that, you can literally, on a Cartesian coordinate system, you can map valences of the subjective and objective value, the tool or the obstacle, and the known or the unknown. And you can map yourself into a quadrant. And I have 4 quadrants. There's a flow quadrant. That's when everything's hitting on all cylinders and you can do no wrong. And that's when you got to let your brain stop thinking and just do what your body tells it to do. And then there's a lower quadrant where something's objectively positive, like you get a new job, but subjectively it's negative. Like you don't like the boss that you're working for now, and you realize that this job that you coveted for all these years is really not a good job and it's not consistent with your life goals. So that's what I call the calm before the storm quadrant. That's where you got some trouble brewing because you've objectively made an advance, but subjectively on a world value, you've declined. Then the lower quadrant is the all is lost. That's when you do everything right and something really bad happens. That's like my young boy who I operated on, who I did everything possible, and he had a terrible outcome. And no matter what I did, that's what happened. And then the upper left-hand quadrant is called birthing a new skill set. That's when something objectively is bad. You have a setback, but subjectively it's good. And those are the kinds of events that we say, oh, it was a terrible thing, but it's the best thing that could ever happen to me. And then when you get through that birthing a new skill set, you move back into flow. And it's this heroic journey that we all have to go on, from flow to calm before the storm to all is lost to birthing a new skill set. And we just continually grow as we do that and get better and better and better. So that's really what the book's about. It's about how I grew through neurosurgery, through coaching a wrestling team, through being a parent and a business person, and how I figured out this system utilizing my knowledge of the brain and neuroanatomy to figure out a way to function better and metabolize fear in a healthy way.
You'll be able to put this in one of your quadrants, but I was at a race that I wasn't supposed to be at, but we had the weekend available, things lined up, and so I went and I did my section of it, and I was technically done. And I looked out at the bay in Nantucket, and I said to myself, well, subconsciously, I'm afraid of sharks. I don't feel like doing the swim. I'm done with the race anyway. I'll just wait here for the bus. And the way I operate is I say, well, when I'm afraid of something or I don't want to do it, I am now doing it. I might double down actually, because I just don't like that weakness. So I jumped in the water, swam across, came out the other side, and that's where I met my wife. So then I reinforced this idea that when I'm fearful of something, right, I must go after it. So I don't know if that fits in or if you think I need help. But,
no, I think you're predominantly a birthing a new skill set kind of guy.
Yeah. Well, Doc, thanks for that.
Well, I appreciate the time. It's been great talking with you, and I'll absolutely make the call.
You know, the big takeaway for me, hopefully it was the same for you, this idea of laying railroad tracks in your brain that a neurosurgeon can see that are more likely to occur between, the ages of, let's say, 10 and 20 years old, right? That's the time when children can really lay some tracks that are going to help them succeed in life. And so we really owe it to our kids. We owe it to them as parents to put them through hard shit and make sure they stick it out and they finish. I had no idea, most of us had no idea that it actually imprints the brain. And so why would you want to leave a gap in your brain or your kid's brain? Like, it's not okay for your kid to say, hey, I want to quit this season, or I don't want to play the piano anymore. I don't want to do math. I want to leave college early. Maybe if they're Bill Gates and they're about to start Microsoft, you let them do it. But otherwise, we got to lay those tracks. He's got an awesome book you should check out, right? Cognitive Dominance. Take a look at that. I'd love to hear from you on that one. And then, I don't know. I want to hear how you are applying some of the stuff you're learning with the Spartan Up podcast, specifically with this podcast, to your resiliency practice, right? To your adversity practice. What are you doing to make yourself tougher, to make yourself more cognitively dominant? One more thing we didn't talk about. You need to look up, there's a woman, Winter Olympics from Slovenia, attempting for gold. She's going for gold. She's been training for 18 years. During the practice run, she slips and falls. Coaches say you got to go to the hospital. She doesn't want to go to the hospital. She's been training for 18 years. She doesn't want her story to end that way. She goes out. She makes it through the first qualifier, makes it through the second qualifier, finally finishes with a bronze. They rush her to the hospital. They find she had 2 cracked ribs, punctured her lungs. She clearly was not operating that day where she earned a bronze medal. She was not operating physically. She couldn't. Her lungs were filled with blood. Her ribs were broken. She punctured the lung. I mean, that was all mental. And so this idea of cognitive dominance, this idea of laying tracks in your brain to make sure you finish things in life, no matter how hard they may seem, like, they have real applications. When I hear a story like that, it's like, we should all be like that. So anyway, I want to hear your story. I want to know how you're dominating life, what your plan is. Check out his book, and I'll see you next week.
This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by True Form Runner. Conquer your next race with the complete training solution from Spartan and True Form. The Spartan True Form Trainer will redefine your running, improve your form, and reduce injury. Find out more at trueformrunner.com.